This is the PHTM Operator Seminar. It's going to go for about an hour. If I need to cut people short, I will do, because we've got a Q&A seminar after that. But our panel of experts, in no particular order, but obviously from left to right, is Martin Walker from Star Cars in Birmingham. He runs a 280 car fleet. I've got Shaz Ali from 247 in, would I say Willenhall? Would that be fair? West Midlands. But he's also involved with a call centre at C20 in the subcontinent. So if you want to ask about call centres, Shaz is your man. Hiding behind there, yes, we have got Atif from Albatross Cars. From Albatross Cars in Derby, a 500 car fleet. David Hunter, Take Me, dealing with networking and acquisitions. We've got Gavin Johnson, who's from Inverness Taxis, giving an idea of things north of the border. And last but far from least, because the very lovely Rachel Dale from AAA Taxis in Hertfordshire, that specifically, and this might be very interesting, used to be a 300 car fleet, and now is only 200 car fleet post-COVID. So before we do anything else, because I've got some questions here, does anyone ask a specific question? We kick the ball, get the ball rolling? Does anybody? Go on, put your hand up. It makes my job a lot easier. There's my colleague Annabelle with the mic. Okay, well in that case I've got a scripture question. Okay, then. Okay, this one's for David Hunter, specifically of Take Me. And basically, what the benefits of firms with central ownership under a commonly local visible brand, and does this amalgamation spell survival for medium-sized fleets? David.
Thank you for the question. A very good question, and I appreciate you asking it. Take Me, basically we're a network of taxi owners. I can see a few of you in the audience wearing the blue T-shirts. And the idea behind it was with the onslaught of Uber, Bolt, Ola, we wanted to build a network, not so much on the technology side, but sharing the knowledge that we had from each and every single one of our operating areas. So the benefit of somebody joining our group, and it's not always about ownership either. Obviously, we give owners the opportunity to sell to the group, but likewise, we almost do like a franchise thing where people can now join us. And
surely the benefits of economies of scale as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what we want, each owner, we want to focus on their needs. And a lot of the needs really is for us to centre our concentration on recruitment and retention of drivers and actually dealing with the customers. So the two important revenue streams, whilst taking away those sort of daily jobs that hinder owners in progressing forward, which, account management, marketing. So we centralise accounts, we centralise marketing. We've got huge buying power now, so when we're dealing with operating systems or insurance or cars or vehicles, you name it, or bringing on new technology such as LinkPay or Redroute.
I picked up on the fact of retention of drivers.
Yeah,
as well,
2 hours.
I'm going to ask Rachel on this at the same time, because I just prelim.
Well, to be honest, Rachel, I follow her on LinkedIn. She's doing a marvellous job. Similar to us, she's got a
Rachel is always on LinkedIn. I know
she's brilliant.
Rachel, do you want to just take this on board a bit more over retention of drivers? What specifically AAA are doing?
So we were a 300 car fleet before COVID, and we probably went down to 25.
Good God.
We then lost loads through retirement, not relicensing. So we've had to build our fleet again. And the reason we were able to build the fleet so quickly was the fact that we had the team in place that you wouldn't have as a small company, but we had it from being a medium to larger size company. So we've just been doing driver training courses every month and getting new drivers into the industry. The biggest hurdle at the moment is getting them through the next stage of licensing.
Why are drivers coming into the industry at the moment?
Well, David and I were both on a webinar a little while ago, and what we all agreed was the drivers are the lifeblood of the business, so we really, really look after them. We're there for them. We have open door policy. They can speak to any of us at any time, and we make sure they're trained. We make sure that they're supported, mentored, and the relationship has got a lot stronger because we were more Uber-like before COVID. You know, didn't want them in the door, wanted everything automated. So we've had to change that with COVID and see them as a partnership.
So at this point, does anybody now that we've got the way we're going to do it, does anyone want to ask a question before I ask another question of the panel? Yes, a gentleman here. Your microphone's coming. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I totally agree with the last speaker there.
Okay.
The most important relationship is always going to be with drivers and owners. Once you break that relationship, they're very difficult to recruit them, to retain them, or to convince them, to come back. So I think the most important thing is that relationship between driver and owners. The
So
more
not a company that's autocratic. It's got to be that.
Yeah, it's got to have
embracing.
that, down-to-earth approach with the drivers, and also tailor the structure of the business towards their needs.
Okay.
A lot of business don't actually ask what are the driver needs. Driver may need more flexibility. We can work certain hours, can't work certain hours. So the more flexibility you have in business, the more likely they're going to stay with you.
So just touching on that point, anybody in the panel can ask this question, but do any of your companies incentivize the drivers to I think Martin wants to ask. Martin, do you want to take one of the microphones?
Are we on? Yes. Before COVID, we were at about 700 drivers, and we're climbing back up to about 300 now. One of the things that we found was something we were able to flex for drivers was their access. When it happened, when COVID struck, not everybody's technically minded, and all the government schemes were focused on online. And I think one of the biggest lessons we all learn, which is talked about here, is not everybody can or will, or their patience is different. So our team were redeployed to make sure that the drivers could get absolutely everything that they could, all the support that they needed. And the one thing we've continued to do is invest in them. So we don't charge them anything. We want them to continue to earn. We have 20 odd drivers every week that are onboarding onto the fleet right now. The work is off the scale. So we've seen demand return much faster than drivers. I would say that much of the problem has been local authorities not getting back to the office, and where drivers didn't re-license, their licence expired, their vehicle expired during COVID, it wasn't an automatic that you could resurrect that. You needed someone back in the office to do it in many cases. And, I don't want to call out the councils that do better than others, but we're working across the whole of the West Midlands and now in Worcestershire.
You've got 7.
I said 7. We've actually got an 8th, which we added last week. We're working across all of those, and some are far better than others. So the types of things that we do is assist them, but then also I'll come to events like this, also the IOL and the LGA, and speak to them so that we're speaking to the people who decide what their staff are doing. Our staff are not all back at the office. Some people do prefer to work from home, but we have the support there for our drivers. They're coming back. But we also are helping to influence the councils to get back, help them to speed up their processes. One of the things we can all achieve with that is just using technology, but it has to be for the person that's interacting. It needs to be at their level. It needs to be for them. Local authorities have had a big responsibility in why it's been
on that
so
point,
slow.
and I'm going to introduce Gavin on technology in a few moments, but I know when I spoke to him before, your Inverness Taxis covers over, and the microphone's coming, there's one here, it covers 2 areas, one in Inverness and one in Aberdeen, and you found a noted difference between the role of licensing authorities across those 2 regions.
Yes, that's right. I operate in 2 cities, Inverness and Aberdeen, up in the north. We have a very good relationship with Inverness. They're very helpful, and to get on board a driver takes an average about 4 weeks. So at the moment we're recruiting there quite well. We were 150 before the pandemic. We're about 120 now, but we're slowly getting back up there. Aberdeen is a totally different kettle of fish, which is very frustrating for us because there's more opportunity for us there in Aberdeen because it's a bigger city. We can grow, we could grow quickly, but of course we can't meet the demand because we haven't got the drivers, and this is so frustrating. We set up there about 8 years ago, so we've slowly got up to, it was 90 before the pandemic, so we're down to about 70 at the moment. We actually almost walked away because we couldn't do anything. We bought a smaller company about 4 years ago, that was Dice Cabs, so that gave us the lift. But the city themselves, we find them so unhelpful. The draconian-like, and they make the private hire driver sit the same exam as a taxi driver. It's the same knowledge test that they sit, which is unnecessarily difficult.
So do you find it being a case of intransigence by the councils?
Yes, they don't adopt the policy the way it's written, and we don't understand this. They are reviewing the knowledge test as we speak, and they're going to put a report out to us in June. So hopefully they're going to take down some of these barriers to help us onboard drivers. We've actually used a bit of technology to help with this.
Well, I'll be coming on to technology in a minute, but I just wanted to remind the audience that in our next seminar, the 1 o'clock seminar, we've got John Garforth of the IOL to bring his bent and his view on licensing from authorities and how they're not intransigent. So if anyone's around for that, you might want to ask questions on that point. But I'll be coming on to technology in a minute. But can I ask a question from the audience now that I think that gentleman there, you want to ask a question? No, you're just looking startled. Okay. Anybody for us? Yeah, you ask another question. Oh.
Just hang on.
Okay.
That relationship between the local authority and the cab companies is very, very important.
Okay.
And I think the more hurdles that they put, the more difficult it is, the less likely you're going to recruit the drivers. I think the other thing is drivers that left the industry, they find it difficult to come back because of the high price of second-hand vehicles as well. So that's another hurdle as well. One advice I would give to a local cab company if you've got a problem with the local authority is use influence on local councillors and social media. Make it out to the public that we are willing to provide the service there, but we find a hindrance, an unfair hindrance by the local authority.
Well, I know Rachel is very
more
much
pressure
focused on social media. But can I ask that of Atik? Sorry, because I've not brought you in so far. Atik, this is Atik from Albatross Cars in Derby. Do you as a company use social media, and in what platforms and in what levels? And
yeah, I mean, we've been using social media for about 13, 14 years.
Do you find it very successful? Do you find it a good way of attracting business?
I mean, that's where the attention is at the moment. And away from traditional marketing, social media is where the attention is, and it's a very cheap form of marketing. It's targeted, it's quick. So, this is how you can compete with the big players who've got billions and billions of pounds to market in your industry.
Do you have someone in your company that specifically that's their job, or is it just all hands to the pump?
We've got a whole team, because at the end of the day, everyone come out with ideas. It was only, we did an April Fool's a couple of years ago where we told everybody we're getting driverless cars, and that went viral. It went all over the UK. We had celebrities like it. Only I think 2 months ago, we did a campaign with Derby County where we leaded the march, a 10,000-man march, and we were on Sky News, and so it's dead easy to use.
I know you're very keen on social media, aren't you, David?
Yeah.
Mainly yourself. The picture appears everywhere. But
we do a lot of videos. I'll be honest. Pre-Take Me days, we're still running a company in Leicester called ADT. We made a few mistakes, I must admit, which went viral. One of them was this issue of guide dogs. So a local guy from De Montfort University uses all the time with his guide dog. And the driver rocked up and decided he didn't want the dog in his car. Unfortunately for the driver and us, it was being recorded on his phone. So it went out. I remember Brexit had just happened. Chris Evans had just been sacked from Top Gear, and ADT refuses guide dog was #1 trending on the Mail Online.
Well, as Oscar Wilde once said, it's better to be talked about than not being talked
absolutely.
about.
Absolutely. I remember that weekend we took over, I think, about 11,000 calls from people calling. We were abused racially, everything going, and But actually, the strange thing is that weekend our bookings went up by 30%. So there is, as Uber have proved, there's no such thing as bad publicity.
Okay, I want to, unless anyone's got a question, I'm going to ask a question of Shaz about call centres. Is anybody yet open? Okay, Shaz. Now, Shaz Ali is 247 cars in the West Midlands, I'll remember that. But also involved in the growth of call centres, which were found over the last few years. And the question to you is this, Shaz. Is the rapid expansion of call centres abroad here to stay? And can the worth be measured in more than pounds and shillings? And that's not specifically at your company, but call centres per se.
Yeah, I mean, in general, I started what I did 5 or 6 years ago because it all started, I think 2 of our night operators were helping themselves to our LPG, and they had a nice little thing going in the evening. So I thought to myself, you know, on the night shift, you're only getting these young ragamuffin type of lads here who just don't want to work, they just want to have a free ride. So, I mean, I went off to Pakistan against the wishes of my father. He says, oh, they're going to do this to you and do that to you. But obviously I went over there. It was difficult. You know, I remember doing the show 4 years ago and trying to convince people, but now it's the norm. You know, just speaking about call centres in general, I mean, there's...
What percentage do you think in the UK do companies use call centres?
Very difficult question. When I started, I think there was about 30,000 operators in the UK. I'm not sure how many there are now. I would think it's a lot less than that. But you don't have to convince someone of the concept anymore. That's what I'd like. That's the point I'd like to put across to people.
Is that because of the benefits of the cost savings, or because the people at the end of the phone are very eloquent?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. At the beginning, we've probably trained over 1,000 staff in the 5 years that we've been over there. And there is what I would call an ecosystem of people who have got that skill set. And how many people that are walking around Islamabad now with the UK accent of their choice, and they've never set foot in this country, because they're very versatile, these kids are. So it's a different game now. You know, there's headhunting going on. You know, oh, that particular person's a good dispatcher. Like we used to get here in the old days, you know, oh, that's a particularly good dispatcher. You know, if they're available, let's get them work for us. You know, drivers like them or whatever else. So that it's what I would say is it's evolved, and it's a different game now in terms of the personalities that are over there. Yeah, and there's one in Lahore now as well. I think there wasn't, you know, that's opened in the last couple of years. So yeah, it's become the capital of
okay.
Of it. Yeah.
I want to throw another question out then at the moment. This actually is specifically for a person in our audience because, as you can see, I probably can't fit you on here, but this is Amir Hassan of Minicabit, the CEO of Minicabit, and he wants to talk just briefly, saying, well, I've got a question. This is your question, Amir, and that is, what is the role of aggregators post-COVID in our industry at the present?
Cool. I'll probably stand up for this.
Okay.
Just about got
round of applause for Amir.
Thank you. Just got a leg to stand on, if you can see my broken fist. Yeah. So Minicabit is Britain's largest cab aggregator. We're the third most visited cab site after.
It's not an advertorial, Amir. It's not an advertorial.
No. So just to set some context. So I'd say, look, the big theme at the moment, obviously, is addressing recruiting drivers and retaining them, right? And you know, we've seen that drivers are very picky about the kind of work that they get. So a good aggregator, hopefully, and first of all, adapt to your availability of drivers and the kind of work that you want to give them, right? So the average fare booked on our platform is about £70. And what we're seeing is, you know, there are operators, all shapes and sizes, you know, almost like if you're a florist and you're part of the Interflora network, right, you might kind of dip in and use us to top up your existing work. We see, you know, some fleets are earning like 5-6 figures out of us, and we're like 20 to 50% of their work. It's really up to you how you manage that. So what we've done is we've certainly made it, you know, very flexible about how you can adapt the kind of work you want to get to the availability of drivers that you have. And then the second thing is the kind of source of work. So, you know, talked about social media and the kind of channels. You know, some of the advertising channels are a bit like, I suppose, spray and pray, right, in terms of the actual return investment that you get in that. What we really focus on is, first of all, partnerships. So we're, for instance, the official partner for Heathrow, Booking.com nationally as well. But also in our algorithms with our tech, let's say if you're a London fleet and you've got a booking that's in a village in deepest Surrey, you know, you might actually get that work coming back into your base area, right? So I think a good aggregator nowadays, you know, should be really adapting their tech to not only the availability but the kind of work you want to get, so it can kind of complement your existing work, right? So hope that kind of makes
Okay,
sense.
thank you, Amir. Thank
Cheers.
you. Right, I know Mo from Nova to Taxis wanted to ask a question. And then this question, I don't know what it is, but it's open to the panel. So
I don't know
any
what it
one
is
of you,
myself,
please,
but, anyway,
anybody,
Mohammed,
please answer it.
well, I'll probably ask the question and I'll probably answer it as well. But then,
I don't want you to answer it, I want
but the
our
thing
panel
is,
to answer it.
okay, Mohammed Sulman from Nora Taxis Newcastle, known as Sully. I was part of a panel on a webinar that Dot had hosted a couple of weeks ago. There was about 200 people logged in to it, and it was all about the theft in Uber case that you know about, and obviously all the parties to it with the Delta Group and the Visa Group as well.
Yeah.
And we've gotten a very mixed reaction. Obviously, I attended there was a taxi show held a few weeks ago, as you know, and their attitude towards it, that it's not a problem till it becomes a problem, and they're keeping a very neutral sort of a stance to it. But this will be to the presenter and the panelists as well, and to hear your view. We're one of the companies that put our money where our mouth is and said, no, well, we believe it is a problem. Uber's not going in to this to benefit us in any way, and the outcome of it and the results of it, it'll mean, as you know, they lost a case in London and now they have to charge 20% VAT on all fares.
Well, let me stop you there, because obviously you're tending to answer the question you're
Oh,
about
no,
to. So can I put that to our panel?
Yeah, the only thing I want to ask is that I'm quite disappointed that only 37 people have joined either of the parties, the Sefton or the Delta groups, as part of the party to the legal challenge. So my question to the group is, do you feel that it is going to be a major problem if this case
Okay,
is
so
challenged?
is the Sefton case going to be something that happens in the near future, mid-future? Who wants to answer that question? Okay, Martin.
My lawyers aren't present. Hope no one's recording. I think that if you're interested, then you have to declare that you're interested. And the case does talk not only to VAT, but all sorts of working practices that will affect your business, may affect your business. Nobody knows how HMRC will interpret the outcome. But we do know that it's not an act of Parliament. This is a court case. It's going to court. The date to put your name down to join the proceedings has already passed, but that's not to say that there can't be more interested parties added at a later date. As with Sully, we put our money where our mouth was too. I think it's a really important subject. And I think if you don't know anything about it, if you've not heard about it, then you need to listen up and try and hear what's going on. It isn't about adding 20%, or some people have said to me, well, why do you want to screw the VAT? It's not about that at all. It's about something that's operated for 40 years in a way in which HMRC is seen to be absolutely legitimate. And because newer legislation in London has been interpreted one way, Uber's tried to find a way in which the 1976 Act, which operates outside of London, might also enable VAT, not just VAT, the operator become the principal. Now in your business you may already be the principal for account work, you might apply VAT to the whole of the fare in some scenarios, your own accountant will advise you. But I think that it's really important to be involved at the beginning, because if you want to have a say, you have to be there. You know, you can't wait and see, and then someone else has decided, and then someone else interprets it, and then someone turns up at your door saying, why aren't you doing this? And nobody wants that shock in their business. If you're not in the conversation, if you're not understanding the problem, potential problem, then you're ignorant, and you really need to be involved. My opinion is that everybody should be involved. The more people that are involved, the less the cost, less the risk. And speaking with a unified voice in one particular field, which interests all of us, is really important. There are many things as competitors we may not agree with, we're competing with these people, but this one's fundamental. It could have workers' rights alterations, your contracts will have to change, how you bill customers will have to change, and also you need to be with a technology partner that will enable you to adapt to whatever it is. Now, far be it from me to speak on, you know, who's running platforms these days, but, you know, some of them may want to change software to help you, and others may not. That's my opinion.
Okay. Talking of technology, and I want to ask this of Gavin before I come to Rachel. Gavin, in your company and in Inverness Taxis, what new tech have you taken on board? And are your bookings automated, or do you offer a personal service?
Great question. First off all, technically is so important to the trade. There's, the industry I think is worth...
There are subtitles to people who can't speak Scottish, by the way.
It's industry's worth, I think, about 9 billion in the UK. So, and there's post-pandemic, there was 408,000 drivers now, maybe 280,000 drivers, possibly 5 million jobs a day getting done at the moment. So technology is needed for that. And we all know the masses love technology. That's why Uber grew so quick. And that's why these other multinational apps are coming to the UK, Ola, etc. So we're taking on a new platform called SafeCab, which I'm getting involved in because I believe in it. We've talked about the drivers and how the drivers need to have more choice and get involved. We also believe that the customers need to have more choice and not just get what's given to them. They don't have a choice, they book it and it turns up. This platform gives both drivers and customers a choice. The customer books on the platform. The drivers in that immediate area see what the customer wants. It's totally transparent. They see the job, where it's going, and the cost of it. It's then up to the driver if they want to take that job on. Okay, I'll take that job on. Then the customer could have...
Gavin, I'm being fair to the people here. That sounded a bit like an advertorial to me. So
okay.
I need to move away from there, please.
Okay. So basically, yeah, I believe in technology, and we're launching this new platform in Inverness, and then we're going to move it to Aberdeen, because I think now is the time for a bit more new technology to help the industry. Okay. And we run a personal service at the moment with phone calls. We don't outsource everything, but I think we're going to have to maybe look at that for the calls, because staffing is a problem. There's great companies out there like Red Route, possibly look at that.
Okay. Ladies, gentlemen, we have. I think is that Des? I can see there. It says Des. We've got a question. This is Des Broster from Visu.
Oh, here we go. Here, Des.
Sorry, Des. I'm going to go to the microphone there.
First of all, we're a couple of pragmatists in the room here. We've got Sully at the front who sees things as they really are on the street, and I think is it Martin to the far left?
It is Martin to the far left.
Made some very valid points about you should all be in there. But of course, there's great fear attached to being involved with these complicated issues, and there are some important people in there. I'd just like to ask the panel, I think we all know Uber's reasoning for coming to Sefton with this, but does the panel think that the losers out of this are the general public in extra fares and the small private hire operators, but the beneficiaries are those large companies, corporate companies, almost corporate colonialists with unlimited funding behind them to absorb all of the market?
Okay, I'll push that over to the panel. Does anyone want to answer that specific question? I think Rachel. Yes, Rachel. Do you want to give the microphone?
Yeah, I mean, the word that I've been using on social media is collaborate. Yes, the big people will always survive because they've got unlimited funds. We're a medium-sized company, so we're just reaching out all the time to local companies to join with us, to share our resources, to franchise, things like that, so that we can become a bigger voice. Because individually, we can't, but as a network, and what some of the others are looking to achieve, we can. So, you know, if you're here today, let's look to collaborate.
Okay. Right, well, as I've got Rachel answering that question, she had the microphone, I do want to ask her about the role of women in the industry over the last 20 years and how it's changed. So do you want to elaborate on that before I open up another question from the audience?
Yeah, well, I think I'm known for this females in the fleet thing that
well,
I launched in March.
But I'm not being in any way sexist into mass, it's just the way things turn out.
It was literally just the way things turns out. We were looking for drivers and finding we couldn't find any, and then the figures came out, and it was clearly obvious that there's only 7% of female drivers in the UK.
So it's a sexist, and is it still a sexist
So
industry?
underrepresented
Okay.
sector. And we often get requests for female drivers. And I started to think, well, why aren't women in this industry? There's a few in the office and administration, because I love it. I love the industry. And a lot of my friends are always very sceptical. So I started to look at it. And then I think International Women's Day came out with Break the Bias. And I thought, there is no bias in this industry, absolutely none. And females in the fleet showed that. So we've started slowly, but I'm getting there, doing social media, radio shows, to just encourage women to look at it as
So
something.
there might have been no bias, but is there ample opportunity across the industry?
There is ample opportunity. I've been supported by so many people who would love women drivers.
Okay, well, we have women in the audience. Do we find this to be the case? Does anyone want to proffer a hand up on this basis? Can maybe do a straw poll of the women in the audience to say, oh, well, this lady, do you want to speak, or just a straw poll? Yeah, we'll just pass you the microphone.
Hi, in Torbay we have got mainly predominantly male drivers. As a female driver, a lot of people, because I drive many buses, a lot of people say you're not scared out there when you're picking up stag parties, male parties, things like that. In actual fact, I've actually found it quite easy, but then I've probably come from the Midlands, a little bit more streetwise than some of the people down there. It's not that bad a job, and I actually think it's something we should encourage more female drivers. Our local authorities, particularly with the school runs, are asking for female-only drivers for some of the children. Because
Would there be certain times of the day you wouldn't entertain being a female driver? Nighttime, weekends?
I've come from a more robust area, coming from the Midlands.
Yeah, you said that.
So I actually found it not too intimidating. But
Okay.
we've had the young farmers come down where I've took 8 people down, things like that. And you've got to be able to have a sense of humour. You've got to be able to roll with it sometimes.
Okay.
But I do think we should encourage more
Thank you.
females into the trade.
Anybody else? I think this gentleman here wants to ask a question. Can you pass that microphone?
I just picked up something Martin said earlier about app jobs. When you said, if we're taking a lot of app jobs, we are principals.
No, I said that if the Sefton case puts you as principal, that's the outcome. You'll be a principal in all bookings, so you'll be potentially charging the VAT on all the fares to all the passengers, even though your drivers might not be VAT registered. It might be in your business that the driver, you're an agent for the driver with cash and app fares, but you're principal for account jobs. So billing the local authority, for example, you might be the principal in those contracts.
Okay.
It depends on how your business is structured.
Okay, I want to open another avenue we've not talked about so far, and that is the green policy of your companies. Does anyone want to speak about your specific company in what relation, in how your green policy is acted upon or not acted upon? What percentage of your fleet is electric? What's it likely to be? Is this something of interest of the panel? I don't know, so I'm asking the question.
I can comment a little bit. It's an important story politically and in the media, and I think people might have different views on, what genuinely represents green technology. Is battery-powered vehicles and power stations chucking out stuff at the other end of in the countryside really the answer? I don't think technology's there quite yet. And I think in many of our towns and cities, and especially in Birmingham, if you own an electric vehicle, trying to find somewhere to charge it is impossible.
Well, I know this is the problem nationwide.
And I think if all of us switched to electric tomorrow, the infrastructure just wouldn't cope. So I think we're on a journey. We're on a journey. And I think that encouraging people to take it up is good. I worry about the second-hand value of a vehicle 7 years down the road if its battery needs to be replaced. And these are concerns that everybody will have. I think it's the case of early adoption. And in any technology, that's always been risky. There'll be the early adopters who pay through the nose, and then that technology becomes redundant.
So do you think in 5 years' time from today, which is
I think
May the 31st, 2027, what do you think your answer would be then?
I think that science is already proving the stuff that's being bought now to be old technology. But it's how quickly they can get new technology to market is going to answer the question. I think in 5 years' time, it most definitely will be that we'll be using less carbon fuel in vehicles. But what the solution is, I don't believe is absolutely clear. We know what our customers want. We know what the public is demanding. We know what the media jargon is all about. And satisfying that is key. You know, in the clean air zone in Birmingham, we've had to use technology to make sure that the non-compliant vehicles aren't offered work inside the zone, and thereby the driver has to pay £8 a day. I know Leeds is even more. So finding a tech partner that can help you reduce dead mileage and prevent non-compliant vehicles from entering areas where there is a higher pollution, or the council determines there's a higher pollution, a clean air zone, a charge and so on, that's important.
Okay.
But also, I think the difficulty at the moment, especially as we come out of COVID, is access to vehicles. You know, if I wanted to buy a new car, you're not going to get one tomorrow, the spec that you want. You might get something that somebody else has ordered.
So the infrastructure's not there yet for various reasons, for charging points, for ability to buy cars, and at that point, when that changes, attitude will change. Shaz, you want to add
I've got a slight take on this in terms of, if I want to work something out, I like to have some numbers involved. And if you look at the major manufacturers who are saying they're going to stop making vehicles that run on fossil fuels by a particular date, and then I would comfortably add maybe 3 years onto that, i.e., you know, most councils, a lot of councils will insist on a vehicle that's 3 years or newer. So I think about 8 years is a sensible sort of prediction as to when we will probably have our hand forced. Putting infrastructure in place. I mean, we've got reverted back to hybrid company vehicles just to regain some control as to where drivers are working, because owner drivers are obviously multi-apping and doing whatever. So we're buying hybrids at the moment, but obviously my brother's out there today, he's talking to EV suppliers, so at least get ourselves educated, and that's my advice to people. Get yourself educated now and keep an eye on what's going on and how things are progressing. But certainly, you know, Toyota is one. I think BV4, I think they've just released a vehicle, so I don't know how good it's going to be, but keeping an eye on it and looking at how your infrastructure. I think Martin's made the point that it's impossible to bloody charge. Now, we're lucky, we've got a huge yard, so we could probably charge 20 vehicles at once. But then what about if we've got 100? How are we going to do that? And our driver's going to be happy to come back to the yard to charge up for half an hour. You know, do we want them in the yard? So there's all these questions that need answering. So
Atik, I'll come to you in a second, Rachel. Atik, what percentage of your fleet is green?
We've got about 5%, 10% on hybrid at the moment. Again, exactly what Shaz said. Are we going to get these cars charged? I had a friend who went to London the other day, and she goes, it took me 3 hours longer because I couldn't find a charging port. So exactly what Shaz said.
So you think it could be a case of even, unless it's charged at home overnight, it's just not a...
I don't think we've got the infrastructure.
No. Okay. I know Rachel wants to come on this. Rachel, what you were going to say?
Yeah, it was just to add that, you know, we're putting lots of drivers through training, and the biggest problem is finding a vehicle. So I've been told 50 drivers waiting to join us can't get a vehicle. So whether it's green or not, unless it's being made possible. Some of these drivers, if they're self-employed, they can't afford to pay out large amounts of money. So I think that's going to be a stumbling block in itself. Also, we brought our sort of carbon footprint down before COVID with an excellent dispatch system, no dead mileage. Of course, not having enough drivers now, we can't do that. So we've got challenges all round.
Okay. Audience, please, does anyone want to ask a question before I ask another one? Because, yes, we've got a lady over there. That's right, the microphone's coming.
Do you think one of the challenges to the industry in general is how the public see taxi drivers, taxi operators, which is why people don't want to recruit into the trade? It's seen as unskilled.
How do you look upon the
public in general? You get a feeling from the public in general, it's just a taxi driver. They don't appreciate that you're taking their children to school, you're taking them home when they're vulnerable and drunk. And do you think that's part of the problem in recruitment?
Okay. Gentleman, lady, who wants to answer that question? David?
Yeah, thanks, Lisa.
Good question, by the way.
Yeah. Just a taxi driver. I think this is the same with a few professions. Are you just a barman? People don't really know until they get under your skin what it involves to be a barman or a taxi driver. And yeah, a few years ago, when we first started 20 years ago, you'd rock up to the council with your driving licence, pay £70, and there you go, bang, you've got a private hire licence. But now it is a lot more professional, and there are more hoops for candidates to jump through. But ultimately, that leads to better service. But yes, to the public, they do not appreciate. They just think it's a driver like an Amazon delivery driver. There's another question: is it just an Amazon delivery driver? I think there is a perception that anyone can be a taxi driver, but of course we all know the truth.
How do you think that's going to change over the years? Is it never going to change, or is it education? Maybe I think Gavin wants to answer this. Maybe.
I would agree with that to a point, but I think things are changing, and I think it's our job to make it change and change that perception. I believe over the past 2 years, when everything else is grounded, it was the taxi drivers who put themselves forward and lost their lives to make sure people could get to their work and deliver their meals. So I think it's up to us to change it.
As nurses, of course. So is it a question of the people have forgotten that from 2 years ago, the sacrifices the medical profession did, the taxi industry? Do you think that people have forgotten now because, well, we're in a post-COVID society? Do you think it's like, next time they go for a pay rise and there's complaints from the general public? Or do you think... Well, I don't know. I'm asking the question. I think Martin. No? Martin,
I think that people, the public, the passengers, have actually come around a lot in the last 6 months. I think taxi services are seen to be difficult to access, and then more of an essential service. It's been heartbreaking, the amount of passengers that we've let down since society began opening up, because everything happened so quickly and you can't get your business back to where it was. Many regular customers have actually come with you. I do believe that people have already changed their views. I think that there's a difficulty in recruitment, not simply because people don't want to do the job. And I don't think that it's a dead-end job. I think it's an essential service. There are people who are lonely, old people, disabled people who rely on what we do. And I think many taxi drivers actually cherish that part of their work ethic.
Okay.
And I was going to say something else, lost my train of thought.
I'm just going to try and get a few more questions in because we're beginning to wrap it up shortly. But can I ask one of the audience first of all? Does anyone want to ask a question before I bring in? I think this gentleman here, you want to ask a question? Lady again? Thank you. So we know you're from Torbay, but apart from that, we don't know anything else.
Yeah. How do you, as a panel, especially the ones that operate in different areas, feel about cross-border hiring and how that affects
I think
your business?
Jazz is up there first, and then we'll go on to Rachel.
When we talk about cross-border, Wolverhampton are infamous or famous, however you want to put it. But obviously, we're an interesting case because we started life in Walsall Borough. We were there waiting. In fact, we got our Wolverhampton licence before the deregulation bill sneaked in at I think it was the end of 2000. It was the end of a parliament anyway. It was great. We took full advantage of it for 2 or 3 years. But once the big boys, I believe, actually made it happen in the background, have got their, or it's all come full circle, and now it's biting us in the behind. So we've got about 11 licenses or something ridiculous like that, but we're going to give some of them up because COVID has reduced. And we're finding that it's probably better to concentrate on where your heavy nucleus of work is, and let the rest of it go. And what my advice to people is, definitely use it. It does bring you more drivers in, but a lot of drivers are multi-apping. If they've got their own car, there's no guarantee that they're working for you all the time, or whether it's even paying you. So be more selective and clever about which councils you are actually putting your time into. So that's my take on it.
Okay, Rachel, I think you want to...
Yeah, we have a large number of licences as well, and cross-border hiring is here to stay. It's solid. Our dispatch system really clearly demonstrates the 3 things that you need to show your local authority. But I would suggest that you really consider it, because that's how we can all network and share work and cut down on our needs for drivers.
On that point, just to remind people, in our next seminar at 1:00, cross-border hiring is going to be an integral part of it. So we'll expand on that there. Okay,
can I answer
I've
that?
got another area of...
Can I answer on that one before you move on?
Yeah,
Sorry.
sure.
I was party to the private hire reform campaign who lobbied government for that change. And I think you might have a view on it that's different in different areas of the country, depending on how wonderful your council is. And we had a real problem in the West Midlands. I mean, people in London don't realise that it was illegal to ask another taxi company to cover a job for you if it was over the boundary in another area and they were licensed by someone else until this act came about. It's correct that we need it for networking. It's correct that we need it for driver recruitment. What the problem isn't the act, it's the change that happened itself. It's that the councils didn't come together and agree what the standards should be across the board, because I'm a firm believer in equality of standard. If I get a taxi or put my sister in a taxi in Brighton that's white and green and can easily be seen, it's got CCTV in the car, whether all that's right or wrong or whether you believe it's right or wrong, why should it be different in the next town she visits? And so there is an argument that this shouldn't be a council's choice. There should be a national standard where a vehicle and a driver, I'm not talking about localism and knowledge, I'm literally talking about the vehicle, the driver, the DBS, the fee should be regulated. And then we all get an equal outcome. Then there isn't a race to the bottom. Some people would say Wolverhampton is the bottom. I would disagree. I would say that they have been the champion of deregulation, and they've shown how it could be effective. They've demonstrated where councils have taken them to task that they do more enforcement in their area than they do. So I think it's really important to understand the problems and then the solutions that they're holding back on. And I think the public deserve the solutions. We're still working to get, and I believe everybody should be part of that conversation, in national standards, making sure that the regulation is the same across the board. It's not fair that it's different somewhere else.
Okay, I want to ask one more question which we've not touched on so far, and then I'll ask a general question because obviously we've got our next seminar shortly. The area we've not touched upon yet is apps. So if one of you want to answer this question, and it's basically what booking percentage does your company do via an app, and do you have to compete with the global apps? But Martin's been hogging the microphone, so I'm disbarring Martin from this. Is it? Okay.
I mean, ours is at 25%. It's been stuck there for a long, long time. I think we achieve an automation of about 60% or something like that, so you can work out the rest of it with IVR or whatever else. Yes, we do have to compete. However, I don't think there's any dispatch software out there that can compete with, I would say, the amalgamated. I'm not talking about particular features. I'm talking about the whole all-round effectiveness of Uber, Bolt, or what have you. You know, we obviously use a supplier who is owned by one of these big companies. But I mean, in reality, we have it in our head that Uber might be helping AutoCab to develop, but on the ground, it just appears they're not. They've got the iGo system. They're handing over work to us. However, their app is far superior to the AutoCab app, and now they're seeing that they're shooting themselves in the foot because they're giving us work. Those jobs are getting late because their algorithms and their technology is far better than our technology. So now, but they've asked us for a meeting recently, and I said to them, look, until you stop hiring drivers in our area, drivers are logged onto your system and ours, and they're taking both of us for a ride.
I think that's going to take us some lecture, so I'm going to stop you there.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not. Look, I've stayed with AutoCab. I think you just have to embrace change. That's the point I'm making. So
right.
Yeah.
I'm literally going to ask a question of the panel, which they're totally unprepared for. A quick question, but before that. Does anybody else want to ask a question of anybody here? Yes, this lady here.
Thank you. I think we all in the room agree about the importance of this industry to the communities. My question to the panel is, what can we do as a collective to be elevated to the same level of recognition of other transport systems, such as aviation, the trains, the buses. What is that our industry can do together to be recognized in such a level? Because it seems to me that we are still at the level of working independently, large, medium, and small companies, but always work independently.
Okay.
So that's my question.
I think Rachel, yes, Rachel?
Two things. It's definitely national standards, absolutely, so people know what they're getting, the same as they do with every other transport provider. And we're doing a lot of training of our drivers. We're offering them all kinds of courses, conflict management, sexual harassment, professional driver. And if we could see these standards across the country, I feel that that would really elevate and raise our industry.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending. I've got this one final question, and it's just a simple question out of 10. Martin, what's the state of the taxi industry at the moment, 0 to 10? How many?
Oh, you want a microphone? I think we're a 7.5.
Okay, Shaz?
Blimey. I'd give it a tentative 6.
Okay, Atik?
I think we're on 8 at the moment.
8, okay. David?
7.
I would say 9 because we've got a great future.
Okay, Rachel?
I'd say 7. There's room for improvement.
Okay, so I think that's roughly about a 7.5 maybe. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for attending. We have another seminar. We have another seminar in 5 minutes' time. I hope you attend that as well. Thank you very much.